Hi guys, so as we get closer to the end of Boris Johnson's reign, his most hardened supporters have come out in his defence, and unsurprisingly most are Brexiteers. Here a guy called Adam phoned LBC to demonstrate why civic studies should still be part of the school curriculum, as he doesn't understand the difference between the leader of a party and an MP. Adam is under the impression that Boris Johnson won a mandate to rule as Prime Minister, but Sheila Fogarty attempted to school him on the matter. But sadly for Sheila, she doesn't understand that you can't educate Brexiteers.
In December 2019, Boris Johnson and the Conservative Party were given a 5-year mandate, not 2.5 years.
Well, the Conservative...
I'm sorry, Sheila, I'll let you speak.
I'm just correcting you, Adam, because you got something wrong already. The Conservative Party, whose leader at the time and still is Boris Johnson, were given a mandate by the people, which I've just said they won blindingly well in the 2019 election. But as David Gauke was explaining earlier on, a Conservative MP and former Conservative MP and Minister, we live in a parliamentary democracy. So any Prime Minister is, when all is said and done, merely the leader of a party. Back to you, Adam.
Yeah, the Conservative Party and Boris Johnson, I will state again, Sheila, were given a 5-year mandate by the British.
He said it again, everybody. He said the same thing, even though it's factually incorrect.
You don't like the message, Sheila, because you've got your own message to project.
No, I'm correcting you, Adam. You live in a parliamentary democracy. You live in a parliamentary democracy.
The only people who elected Boris Johnson are the people of Uxbridge. Those are the people who elected Boris Johnson, not the country. Adam doesn't understand the difference between an MP and the leader of the party. Boris Johnson was the leader of the party. Now, I know that many people voted for the Conservatives because they thought they were voting for Boris Johnson, but they were not voting for Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson was not on their ballot, unless they lived in Uxbridge, in that constituency. Anyone who didn't live in that constituency was voting for, if they wanted Boris Johnson to win, were voting for a Conservative. But Boris Johnson was not the one who won the mandate to rule the country for 5 years. Yes, I understand that he was the leader of the party at the time, and I understand that many people voted Conservative because they liked Boris Johnson. They liked the way he ruffled his hair and he was a bit rough around the edges. But this is a big problem. This is this idea of voting for a candidate, voting for a personality and not voting for a party or not voting for policies. Now, part of the policy was get Brexit done. We're seeing how that's working out. But the other part was, I'm backing Boris, or I'm voting for Boris. And Johnson and the Conservatives were very clever because they were able to convince the public that even if you were voting for somebody you don't even know, in a sense you were voting for Boris Johnson. And now that Boris Johnson is no longer flavour of the month, a lot of these people are turning around and saying, what the hell is going on?
The British public...
You live in a parliamentary democracy.
And the Conservative Party, Sheila, they can have their decision at the latest of December 2024.
And they will.
Right. So in the meantime, you can spout whatever nonsense you like about Boris Johnson, but he's going nowhere, and I hope he stays in place because he has got a mandate by the British public.
He has a mandate by the people of Uxbridge. And what's interesting about this as well is that Boris Johnson could be removed at the next election. His mandate is not that strong. And I think if the Liberal Democrats and the Labour Party work together, they could oust him at the next election. But that remains to be seen.
Not by LBC, Sheila.
I don't care if he stays or goes. I'm telling you that you live in a parliamentary democracy, and that's how that works. If his party in Parliament decides he's not the man for the job, he stops being Prime Minister.
He's the Prime Minister until the British public have their say.
But that's not true, Adam.
If he gets usurped by the Conservative Party or the backbench committee of idiots, then more fools them, because Boris Johnson has been the best thing for Britain since 2019. He got us over the line with Brexit.
He got us over the line with Brexit. What the heck does that mean? I keep hearing this argument. Boris Johnson got us over the line with Brexit. So he got Brexit done, because that was his promise back in 2019. Vote for me and I'll get Brexit done. But Brexit is not done. Very far from being done. We're still talking about the situation in Northern Ireland. Businesses are still struggling as a consequence of Brexit. One of his own MPs talked about rejoining the single market. Tobias Ellwood. So, once again, how did he get us over the line when it came to Brexit? How did he get Brexit done?
Which you don't agree with, Sheila, and he's going to get us out of this mess. If you think the Labour Party or Liberals or SNP are going to do a better job, you're on another planet.
I haven't said anything of the kind. I'm just reminding you, Adam, that you're getting your facts wrong about the kind of democracy we live in. We live in a parliamentary democracy.
And unfortunately for Adam, he will still remain within his echo chamber, believing that Boris Johnson won a mandate. And Boris Johnson on Wednesday night was talking about how he won 14 million votes. That 14 million people backed him. But there aren't 14 million people in Uxbridge. Of course, he's talking about the electoral victory. And in some way, some people would say, yes, that's down to Boris Johnson. But that's not how democracy works. Boris Johnson, as leader, won the party an 80-seat majority, but not Boris Johnson as an MP. Boris Johnson won his own majority within his constituency. And as we're seeing at the moment, many MPs within his party want him gone. And he will eventually leave. He may be dragged kicking and screaming out of number 10, but he will eventually be removed. Whether he will be fired or resigned, or the party will move against him, or the 1922 committee will have him forced out in some way. As of Wednesday evening, Boris Johnson is talking about fighting on, replacing the ministers who have resigned with others. And when I was making this video, the latest news was that Michael Gove was fired by Boris Johnson, which is extremely interesting, and we'll have to look into that further later on. But Boris Johnson will go, and it doesn't matter how many votes around the country how many people were voting for him or voting for a Tory candidate under the impression that they were voting for him. It doesn't work like that. And this is a big problem, and I said before, it's a big problem that there's this type of personality vote that people go on. This idea, I'm going to vote for Boris Johnson, or I'm voting for Keir Starmer. No, you're voting for the party, and you're voting, hopefully, for the party's policies. You're not voting for the leader. The only time you're voting for the leader is if you're in that constituency. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think about all of this. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.